Another report released from the Commerce Commission shows consumers were being fleeced, this time with building supplies. To discuss Commerce and Consumer Affairs Minister David Clark is with us. So how do you plan to address this?
G'day, Jono. Look, this is a draft report. It's the third market study that we've commissioned, and it's it's a very important step on a journey of analysis about the sector. It shines a spotlight on what's happening in the industry, and the Commerce Commission have come back to say, look, the regulatory system and the way it interacts with builders and architects and so on, in practice, has some things that could be improved. And that some of the quantity forcing rebates seem to be potentially making some mischief in the system. So what happens from here? They then call for submissions on the draft report. They have a consultation where they get the industry in and they test some further thinking around it, and then we get some robust recommendations at the end. It doesn't stop things that are kind of obvious to get on with now, but actually the purpose of these market studies is to get really robust analysis so that we can really respond in a meaningful way.
But 4 months till the final report is out. You've got some draft recommendations, black and white, in front of you now. Can't you act now on some of those?
Look, we'll certainly be starting to ask some questions around some of them. The quantity forcing rebate stuff seems really, I think, concerning in the way that it's been put there. I think, though, also the Commission itself has signalled some of the behaviour in the market that it wants to see more closely examined. I saw in there, and I'm searching through my papers, a comment about those firms that think that are using those schemes should be having a think about whether they're going to be compliant with the new Section 36 requirements when that comes into force in April, and they're pretty upfront. In fact, here it says suppliers with substantial market power, particularly those in highly concentrated markets, should review their rebate structures for compliance with the revised Section 36 of the Commerce Act. So there's going to be some companies, I think, probably tonight, reading this report pretty closely and thinking about whether they have the right structures in place and whether they'll be compliant with the Commerce Act in the future.
Your competition is not working, that's very clear. So what can you do immediately?
So I would just observe, like with the grocery report, what happened and what we have seen happen immediately, just in response to the draft report being published, the process, the grocery sector started saying it wanted an oversight grocery commissioner, watchdog, never said that before. It wanted a mandatory code, never said that before. Thought that maybe we should get rid of covenants that were restrictive or exclusive, never said that before. And then they've started doing price rollbacks and so on. So, you see a sector there looking at things and saying, actually, we need to do things a bit differently. And I expect we'll see some moves from the sector in response even to the draft report.
Yeah, how quickly?
Look, that'll be on the sector. They've got some clear messages from the Commerce Commission about things they're going to want to dig into further. And they've also said, the Commerce Commission, that they will be following up, for example, on covenants and so forth further. And I think they'll be looking at their practices pretty closely in direct response to this report that we've got.
What's your direct message to companies like Fletcher's?
Oh, look, my message to anybody involved in the sector, particularly if they've got a risk of substantial market share and market power that could be exercised, that they should very closely examine their practices. They can change them now. There's nothing to stop them changing those practices now if they think they might fall foul of the new Section 36 provisions, or indeed if concerns raised in this report kind of resonate with them, there's a chance for them to change their practices straight away.
The argument from the opposition is the terms of reference for this was too broad. It doesn't address pricing specifically on building products. What do you say to that?
Well, look, these market studies have to have a focus. There are people who called for the whole supply chain through COVID to be examined. The market study examiners have to focus in. They've done some case studies of particular sectors and they've made some interesting observations. The glass wool sector, only 3 participants, 85% of the market. They've actually seen more coming in. So they think, perhaps things are actually starting to be a bit more competitive there. The merchants, there's 5 of them and some others around the periphery, they're saying, actually, that may not be the main area that they focus on.
And that was an area that was working well, wasn't it, merchants?
So they are, exactly. This gives us there were lots of stories floating around. This starts to give us a real concrete picture. But But it's got to be tested now with the industry, and those robust conversations that follow from a report like this will make sure that the final findings really
Will they
stand
really
up.
be different, though, to the draft recommendations?
Well, we've certainly seen in the other reports that have come through that the draft recommendations and the final recommendations can be different. In the supermarket sector, there were some changes made between those two reports as a result of feedback from the sector. I think it's appropriate. We can't make judgments when we don't have the full set of information. That's what these market studies do, and I think it's a good thing to shine a spotlight on particular industries that are causing concern.
Another study showing, competition is severely lacking. What do you say to that about the state of New Zealand's economy and different sectors within it?
I'm an optimist. I would frame this positively in that these sectors have been, again, look back to the grocery sector, which I'm dealing with quite directly now. They've observed a pattern of behaviour over decades, and now we're dealing with that. Here we've got something that's been a concern to people for a very long period of time. Now we're dealing with it. So we're shining a spotlight on those sectors that people are most concerned about, where we hear the anecdotes that things might not be quite right in this respect or that respect, and we are getting on and making changes.
Okay, so December is when the final report is out. What will we see after that? What's going to happen because of that?
Well, we'll respond. The government is not obliged to accept the recommendations, but it is obliged to respond to them. And what there are things that are already happening. The Plaster Board Task Force, the Commission actually referred to that as an example of effectively what good looks like. The changes that are being made there. It's not that there's any particular regulation that's wrong, but there's clearer guidance can be provided, people can be led through the process, and you can have positive change happening in the market. So they've identified some of the stuff government's already doing as a potential way forward. Where we can see things that are working, we'll continue to do those things, but then there'll be a concrete response to the specific recommendations that come from the final report.
At this stage, could you accept any of the recommendations proposed in the draft report?
Look, I think I'm looking forward to actually having a chance to read right through it. You'll appreciate I've only received it this morning, like everybody else, and I've had a number of
What's
other.
your mood? Do you think you could accept some of them?
Things? Oh, look, I don't want to get into speculation. I actually want to go through it thoroughly because this is a report worthy of proper analysis and worthy of digging into. And we've foreshadowed that we think that the quantity forcing rebates question is one that's hung out there and looks pretty uncomfortable at first glance, but want to dig into the detail. The Commerce Commission has drawn attention to the three market studies they've done. All three of them have observed restrictive covenants and lease arrangements. We kind of want to dig further into those things, I think.
Will people on the ground see more products, more choice as a result of this, do you think?
I think over time, yes, certainly. The innovation is something that they have stressed there, that the system currently really rewards the tried and true. It doesn't currently reward innovation. They've put forward some recommendations about trying to make sure that the regulatory system looks to support innovation, because that is important in a functional market. I would hope that would mean that we do see that. I'd also observe, in response to the supermarket one, I keep coming back to that because it's the one that's right in front of me and I've got the final findings on. We are seeing movement in that market, partly in response to having a clear picture of what's going on and the conditions for competition being improved.
So you're putting the building supplies sector on notice. You could act in the same way.
Oh, certainly, we will act on the findings. We will look at the recommendations. In that report, I accepted 12 out of 14. There were two that I thought, in our case, actually thought would go a bit further. In this one, look, we'll wait till the final report's out before making that formal government response. But these are set up to be thorough-going reviews, and we expect thorough recommendations out of them, and we will give them full consideration.
David Clark, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, John.